What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Eric, and this is Eric Bets Fights. Welcome back, y'all. This is going to be my betting breakdown video for UFC Austin. This is actually going to be an abbreviated version of the show that I normally do. Once again this week, I'm going to be just doing the main card, simply because I'm behind on my tape study. I'm not done with all of it yet. But I do have to do a live stream tomorrow night on DFS by the Numbers, the normal best bet show that we do on Saturday. Brady's actually going to the event, so he's going to miss that. So we're going to do it tomorrow night. So I do have to finish my tape study by tomorrow night, but I need to get this video out tonight. It's Wednesday right now, so I'm just going to do the main card for now. First, though, let's do a real quick recap of my bets from last time. I'm not even going to put up an image of my bets this time because I had so many. I did a bunch of prop sprinkles. I had so many bets that the image won't fit on the screen anyway. So I'm just going to go through these real quick for you. I did take the half unit shot on Taila Santos at plus 450. I would still, she lost. I would make that bet every day of the week. I said in my breakdown that I thought the fight was going to be close. And, I said it won't surprise me if Shevchenko wins, but it will surprise me if Shevchenko dominates, and she certainly didn't. Taila Santos did really well. A lot of people are, arguing that she even won the fight, and I think you can definitely make that argument. So I thought that was a good bet. I had one unit on Jake Matthews at plus 130. He came through for us. If you watched the best bet show last week, I even said I think we might see Jake Matthews 2.0. I'm pretty proud of that. Pretty proud of that prediction because I think we did see Jake Matthews 2.0. I put 2 units on Jack Della Maddalena at minus 125. He came through. I did actually end up hedging on Ramazani Maev at plus 145. So I was in a spot where I was able to make a small profit either way. Obviously, I shouldn't have made the hedge on Maev because he lost, and pretty handily. But anyway, it worked out. I put 1 unit on Joshua Kulabau at plus 200. Pretty proud of that bet. I was not picking him to win, but my thought was that the fight was going to be pretty close, and I'll take plus 200 on a fight that I think is going to play out really closely. So I was really happy with that one. I put 2.1 units on Brendan Allen, who did come through for us. Lost a unit on Na Liang and lost a unit on Ramona Pascual. Took a couple small underdog shots on some low-level women's MMA there. Didn't pay out for me. Onto the props and parlays. I put 0.4 units on Malkoun by decision at plus 600, which, could very well have hit. A lot of people thought Malkoun won that fight. It was very close. I went too heavy on a couple of these overs and unders. I went 2 units on Weili versus Joanna over 2.5 rounds, and obviously that didn't happen. It ended quickly, so lost 2 units there. I did have the 1 unit on Na Liang up at the top there, and I hedged with 0.375 units on Gomez Juarez by KO at plus 275, which did come through. So we pick up 1.03 units there, so I end up plus 0.03 units on that fight. I bet 2 units on Yuri versus Glover not to start round 4. Everybody was on unders there. Rather than going, I think a fight doesn't go the distance was like minus 800 or something, and that one would have hit. But anyway, I put 0.2 units on Teixeira by TKO at plus 800. Obviously, that didn't win. I put half a unit on Pascual by decision at plus 275. Didn't hit. 0.2 units on Della Maddalena by TKO in round 3 at plus 1200. That one didn't. 0.5 units on Taila Santos inside the distance at plus 1250. No good. And then I did sprinkle the round props for Shevchenko, round 3, round 4, round 5 at plus 900, plus 1300, plus 2000. No good there. 1 unit on Prohaska wins inside the distance at minus 155, so we won that one. And then I did hit my parlay that I put together of Brendan Allen, Jack Della Maddalena, Jake Matthews, and Yuri Prohaska. I put half a unit on that at plus 529. So with all those bets, I had like 21 bets total. I end up down 0.15 units, so literally down less than 1/5 of a unit. So, we had a big winning event. We won 9.53 units 2 weeks ago. Lost a tiny bit last time. But, we're ready to see what we can do about having another winning event here. That's going to be it in the way of that recap, folks. Let's go ahead and jump into the main card for UFC Austin, which will be headlined by what should be a pretty fun fight between Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett, the Falmer King himself. All right, so if I've got this right, hopefully I've got this right. Sometimes they end up changing this stuff, especially if fights fall off. But I've got Julian Marquez versus Gregory Rodriguez as the curtain jerker for the main card. So hopefully that ends up being the case. let's see. For each of these fights, I've typed up just kind of some stats and talking points. I'm just going to walk you through some of these things. Okay, so Julian Marquez beat Phil Hawes on the Contender Series in August 2017, and then he debuted in the UFC against Darren Stewart in December 2017. He's 3-1 in the UFC, having fought only 4 times, despite having been in the promotion for 4.5 years. So I had to dig into that because I couldn't remember what happened. He didn't fight at all in 2018, not at all in 2019. Or no, he fought once in 2018. He didn't fight at all in 2019 or 2020, and then he fought twice in 2021. He had 3 fights booked and canceled in the 14 months since the Alvey fight. And it turns out that that's because, well, actually, I've got a quote here from Marquez from an interview that I read today. He was out for 2 years due to a torn lat. I've never seen... Oh, okay, this is where he's talking about his doctor. He's done this multiple times, and when he went in, he said, "I've never seen a tendon torn to this severity." He's done repairs over and over and over again with baseball players. His surgeon has worked on tendons on baseball players because it happens with a pitcher when you overextend your arm, but he's never seen it ripped off the bone like mine. So it was a very rare tear, and it's taken so long to heal back to where it needs to be. So yeah, he had a really bad torn muscle, and then he's also had some issues with like his neck and I think his hip it was. So he's had several surgeries and stuff. So that's why he's been out. He's been having a lot of health issues apparently. Some other stats. Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, lands 5.2 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 5.8, so he's getting hit more than he's hitting. Julian Marquez lands 4.2 and absorbs 3.1. Julian Marquez also has he's credited with 0% takedown accuracy on 5 attempts, so he's gotten 0 takedowns on 5 attempts in the UFC. RoboCop averages 2.59 takedowns per 15 minutes with 53% accuracy. And he also RoboCop shows 100% takedown defense on his UFC stats, but that's only on 4 attempts, which were all from Dusko Todorovic, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, as for some sort of skills breakdowns here, Marquez is one of those fighters who, like, if you watch the Sam Alvey fight, and he's done this in other fights too, where he's one of those guys who he'll pump his lead hand out there repeatedly. Well, not even as a fist. He kind of paws it out there a lot of the times. He's kind of looking to draw something out from his opponent so that he can counter. And he's a fighter that he will tend to kind of slow the fight down. He's not real high volume, and he kind of takes things slow, but then he'll explode into like really violent moments suddenly. So like he's a guy that, I mean, as we saw, well, especially in the Maki Pitolo fight, where he was basically losing that whole fight and then comes alive in round 3 and then just very suddenly finds a finish there. Same with Sam Alvey. I mean, he wasn't losing that fight, but he wasn't putting it on him a ton, and then all of a sudden he's able to put it on him, and then he finds that kind of weird like sideways bulldog choke type thing. So yeah, he's a guy that even if he's not winning the fight, he can just kind of find that moment sometimes. So that's a really cool thing to see from a fighter. He's able to be dangerous in a variety of ways as well. He can be dangerous with strikes, he can be dangerous with submissions, and he can find those moments where he's able to be effective. I did learn just right before recording this video that RoboCop took this fight on short notice. I didn't know that. I don't know how short. I think like a couple weeks. And he has shown some cardio issues, which now that I know it's short notice, I do have some concerns about that. He doesn't necessarily like death gas, but he will slow down later in the fight. Overall, I think RoboCop is the better fighter here. He's the bigger guy. He's the more physical guy. I think, he's got a great ground game. He's also, he's a good striker too. He's got power on the feet. Like overall, I think RoboCop is the better fighter. I forgot to give you the odds. I know RoboCop is favored. I think he's like minus 170 or so. Okay, yeah, minus 165 all the way up to like minus 190, minus 200. Julian Marquez can be had for plus 160. So RoboCop is, decent sized favorite, not too big. Anyway, like I said, I do think RoboCop is the better fighter here. I do have concerns about him if it starts to go late, especially with this being late notice, that we could see him tire out. And we have seen Marquez really come alive and crank it up in round 3. So I would say this is a good fight to, if I was going to bet it pre-flop, I guess I would bet RoboCop. I did put RoboCop in a parlay. I've got a bunch of parlays that I put together on this card. But I think it's a good fight to keep your finger on that live bet button, because especially if you see RoboCop start to fade, I think Marquez could become a good bet later in the fight. Next up, we've got, where are we at here? Damir Ismagulov versus Guram Kutataladze. Hopefully I'm saying those names correctly. Damir Ismagulov lands 3.75 significant strikes per minute and absorbs only 1.9. Pretty low numbers on both sides there, but the fact that he absorbs 1.9 is pretty impressive. Guram Kutataladze lands only 2.47 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 3.47. So Guram is very low volume and he's getting hit quite a bit. So yeah, the stats there. You know, how much do we pay attention to stats? I don't know. A lot of times if I think a fight after the tape, if I think a fight seems really close, I'll use the stats to sort of help me make decisions. But you know, we don't want to trust stats too much because the context of the stats can matter a lot. But looking at those striking stats, both offensively and defensively, they favor Damir Ismagulov quite a bit. Skill-wise, overall, you know, Damir is a solid wrestler and he's a solid fundamental boxer. He keeps things pretty buttoned up on the feet. He puts out pretty decent volume. He puts out a great jab. I like that he keeps his jab out there. You know, years ago we didn't really see MMA fighters use jabs at all, and then we saw it, you know, start to come into focus a little bit that people would use jabs. But I still think it's one of the most underutilized weapons. There's so many fights. That's probably one of the most common things that I yell while watching fights is use your jab. Why are you not jabbing? You know, like there's so many situations where a jab would work brilliantly and fighters don't do it. So. But yeah, Ismagulov, he's a solid fundamental technical boxer. He puts his jab out there. He's got decent volume, but he doesn't have a ton of power. He's not a guy who's going to floor you. Whereas Guram Kutataladze, he's the more dangerous fighter of the two. I think you know, especially on the feet here. Guram is not as good of a striker. He's not as good of a boxer. He's not as technically sound, but I think he's more dynamic. He's more powerful. He's more athletic. I think he has better movement, that kind of thing. The way I see this fight playing out, I see Damir putting out more volume, landing more, and winning a decision. That's kind of how I see it going. And Damir does have a solid chin. So even though Guram is one of those guys who can, he can find an early knockout, he can hurt you with something. I do think that Damir has a solid chin and should be able to handle most of those things. Also, like I said with the stats, Guram can be very low volume. Actually, I want to mention this because I had never done something like this before, but while watching tape, I noticed in the Gamrot fight that Guram Kutataladze wasn't throwing many strikes. Like I noticed there were long spells where he just wasn't throwing anything at all. So I rewound a little bit and I actually timed it. And it was just a random spot where I happened to notice that he didn't throw any strikes for a while. I measured the gap from the time that he threw a strike to the time that he threw another strike, and it was 35 seconds. Now, that maybe doesn't sound like a long time, but if you just stop and look at your clock and let 35 seconds go past, you will see that that is a long time to not throw a strike when somebody is in front of you who is fighting you. So, yeah, I do definitely have concerns about Guram's output. Let's see, what else did I have to add? I said most of that already. I do think, like I said, Damir is a solid wrestler. He doesn't necessarily have to use his wrestling because his boxing is really good. I think Damir probably will be able to get takedowns here if he wants to, but Guram is a good scrambler and he is good at getting up off his back. So I don't know that Damir necessarily would be able to hold him down for long spells, but I think he'd be able to hold him down here and there. But yeah, overall, I do like Damir Ismagulov to win a decision here, and I did bet him. I put, I think, 1.6 units to win one at -160. Next up, we've got Joaquin Buckley versus Albert Duraev. That should be a pretty fun fight. So as far as stats, the first thing I wanted to look at was Buckley's takedown defense. If you look at his stats, Buckley shows 40% takedown defense. But if I was reading it right, it looked like he only had about 5 takedowns attempted against him. So he really hasn't dealt with a whole lot of takedowns in his UFC career so far. Joaquin Buckley is best known as just like a physical specimen with a lot of power, who's very athletic. He's best known for that, of course, that viral knockout of Impa Kasanganay where Impa caught his leg and Joaquin Buckley did the thing. If you grew up loving martial arts movies like I did, you saw this in like 80s martial arts movies all the time. And if you grew up as a kid studying martial arts like I did, it's something you tried to do all the time with your friends, where like the whole like you throw a kick, somebody catches your kick, and then you try to spin around and kick them with the other leg. Yeah, like Joaquin Buckley actually did that in the UFC. So that was, I'm sure you've seen it, as it's literally the most watched knockout. I had a question about it on this week's trivia video. It had like 17.8 million views on Instagram or something, and it was the most viewed, the most retweeted tweet in the history of the UFC, whatever. Anyway, yeah, Very, very viral knockout there. However, in his last fight against Abdulrazak Al Hassan, Buckley did quite a bit of wrestling. He showed that that's a tool he has in his toolbox, and really, I thought he put together a pretty complete MMA performance in that fight. He did gas out in the third round. You know, he won the first 2 rounds, if I remember correctly, and then he gassed out in the third round, and Razak Al Hassan was able to win the third round. Razak Al Hassan was even able to do some wrestling there and to take Buckley down. So we did see Buckley have issues with his takedown defense there, but that was when he was super gassed out. Let's see. Oh, I put in my notes here. Albert Duraev's last name ends in EV, and he fights accordingly. Smothering grappler with great takedowns, great top control, strong ground and pound and subs once he gets you down. So yeah, he's a guy who he fights like he's got EV at the end of his last name. He's looking to use his strikes to get in, close the distance, take you down, and either rain down shots or find the neck basically. On the feet, Duraev can be a little bit flat-footed and low volume. He's the kind of fighter, like I just said, probably not super comfortable striking. He's not really looking to use his strikes for much other than just closing that distance. So basically, like, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but my breakdown for this fight is pretty binary. Obviously, if Duraev can get the takedowns, I think he's going to dominate. If he's able to get Buckley down consistently or able to get him down and hold him down for a long time, he'll definitely win a decision without any trouble. He'll probably even be able to find a ground and pound finish or a sub, I would think. However, if he struggles to get the takedowns, Duraev is going to be in a lot of trouble because Buckley is a guy, especially if you're a person who isn't super comfortable with your striking, Buckley's not a guy that you want to spend a lot of time on the feet with. He's incredibly explosive. He's incredibly dynamic. He's incredibly powerful. And he will land something if you give him that chance. Also, Duraev has been finished. All 3 of his pro losses are by strikes, and 2 of them are KOs in the first round. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that he has chin issues, but it does mean that, he can be caught by someone like Buckley who's going to be looking to do that. Overall, I do think Duraev probably wins this fight. I think he probably will find those takedowns and probably will win a decision or even find a stoppage, but I don't mind a sprinkle on Buckley by KO here, as he will definitely be dangerous when they're in open space. And, if Duraev is not able to get those takedowns, it could get hairy pretty quick. So last I looked, I think Buckley by KO was at like plus 300 or something like that. That's a spot that I don't mind a little sprinkle on. And again, I forgot to give you the odds, but you're used to that. That's what I always do. Albert Duraev, minus 213. Joaquin Buckley, the underdog, at plus 205. Okay. Next up, what time we got? All right. Next up, we've got Tim Means versus Kevin Holland. Record-wise, Means is 32-12-1 overall, 14-9-1 in the UFC. So he's been in the UFC a long time. He's got a lot of, 24 UFC fights. He's currently on a 3-fight win streak over Laureano Staropoli, Mike Perry, and Nicholas Dalby, all 3 by decision. Kevin Holland is 22-7 overall, 9-4-1 in the UFC. Kevin Holland hasn't been in the UFC that long, but he fought, 5 times in the 2020 calendar year during the COVID era there. So he hasn't been in the UFC for a super long time, but he's racked up quite a few fights in a relatively short amount of time. Tim Means, obviously, he's tough. He's well-rounded. He's been in the game a long time. He's one of those crafty veterans who's kind of seen it all. He's been in there against everybody. He's been in there against a wide variety of fighters. He's beat some of them. He's lost to some of them. But, he's one of those guys who is crafty. He is well-rounded. He knows what he's doing in there wherever the fight goes, That said, Kevin Holland will have a size advantage, a speed advantage, a reach advantage, an age advantage, an athleticism advantage. Like, Kevin Holland's got a lot going for him in this fight, and this seems like as good a time as any to give you the odds, because Kevin Holland is a minus 265 favorite, comeback on Tim Means at plus 240. Part of me is almost a little bit surprised Holland isn't a bigger favorite than that, simply because of all of the all the things he has going for him here. And I don't have their ages in front of me, but he must be almost a full decade younger than Means too. And we know that when fighters are quite a bit younger, they do win a good percentage of the time. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they do win most of the time. Tim Means is really good in the clinch. You know, he's called the Dirty Bird. He's really good with dirty boxing. He's really good when a fight gets grimy and dirty and greasy and grindy, you know, so I was getting in the clinch with you and throwing elbows and pushing you up against the cage. That's what Tim Means is good at. That's where he thrives. So, you know, that's where Tim Means is potentially going to have success here if he does. But, you know, Kevin Holland is good in those situations as well. And he's just going to be so much bigger, so much younger, probably stronger. You know, Tim Means is probably the better striker here, but Holland he's really quick. He's athletic. He's able to, he moves really well. He's able to get in and out and throw his strikes. Means is a calm, comfortable veteran in there who knows that he can handle what you throw at him, and he knows he's comfortable wherever the fight goes. But I just think he's got so much working against him here that it's hard to see Means winning unless Kevin Holland makes some kind of huge mistake. I can't even imagine what it would be, but yeah, I do have to favor Kevin Holland here for all the advantages that he has going for him. I would maybe use Kevin Holland as a parlay piece, but overall I don't really like a bet on this fight too much. I'm pretty sure I did put Holland in some parlays. Like I said, I put together a bunch of parlays for this card already. I don't usually do that. Yeah, I'll sometimes have one or two, but for some reason I went parlay crazy on this card. I'm still, when you get right down to it, fairly new to. I'm not a new MMA fan. I'm not a new MMA gambler, but I'm new to tracking my bets and trying to take the MMA gambling game a little more seriously. So I'm still trying out different styles. You know, I don't all the way know who I am as an MMA gambler yet. You know, some people just pick their favorite 2 or 3 spots and go heavy on them. Some people have like 30 bets a card, sprinkling all kinds of things. I'm trying a little of both, trying to figure out kind of where I'm comfortable. But yeah, this card I ended up doing a lot of parlaying, which I don't always do. Next up, Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon. I did break down this fight in detail the last time these guys were booked to fight. And I think maybe what I'll do, I think I might put that video in the down in the comments, and I'll pin it to down in the comments of this video, so that if you do want to see you know, a more detailed breakdown from me on this fight, you can get it there in that other video, because I did talk about it for quite a while there. But let me give you some stats on this one. Cerrone is busier with strikes and has the better striking accuracy by 8%. Cerrone has just a hair below 80% takedown defense. He's been taken down only 7 times in 69 attempts. Lauzon has 45% takedown accuracy and averages 2.3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Cerrone is winless in his last 6, with one of those being a majority draw against Nico Price. Cerrone's last win was over Al Iaquinta back in 2019, and Lauzon hasn't fought since his win over Jonathan Pierce in 2019. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep on the breakdown here. You know, both of these guys are over the hill. Nothing against them, but I mean, they're getting toward the end of their careers here. Like I said, Lauzon hasn't fought in over, I think it's over 2 years now, but his last fight was a quick win over a solid up-and-comer in Jonathan Pierce, so he does have that going for him. You know, he was able to get Pierce out of there in the first round, if I remember correctly. And Cerrone, you know, despite being an absolute legend and a future Hall of Famer, he just hasn't looked good. Like I said, winless in his last 6, just hasn't really had great performances lately. You know, my main breakdown, like the main point I want to make in this fight, is that Cerrone is known to be a slow starter. Joe Lauzon is known to be a quick starter. You know, if you look at like Cerrone's fight, I mean, there's other examples too, but the first thing that comes to mind is Cerrone's fight with Conor McGregor. Conor was able to get him out of there before Cerrone even kind of really knew he was in a fight, you know, and that's something that you can kind of do to Donald Cerrone. It takes him some time to get going, and Lauzon is exactly the kind of fighter who can come out and surprise you before you've had a chance to really get going. So for that reason, I did sprinkle Joe Lauzon by KO in round 1 at plus 700. I got that on Bet Online because that's the book that I do my props on, but I know that some of the other books, DraftKings and FanDuel, usually have even better prop lines. You can get better numbers than Bet Online. I got it at plus 700. I had seen some other people mentioning it was at plus 1,000 on some other books. I don't know if it still is now or not, but I think Lauzon by KO in round 1 is a pretty likely outcome here. That said, I think it's a good live betting spot. As Lauzon, you know, being the fast starter, but somebody who will slow down, Cerrone being the slow starter who will pick it up as it goes. So if Lauzon doesn't find that, so here's how you could bet it. You could bet Lauzon by, you know, that prop I just mentioned, Lozon by KO in round 1, and then you can look to live bet if that doesn't happen, because the deeper we get into the fight, the seesaw is going to tip more and more towards Cerrone likely being the winner. That's kind of how I see it. But yeah, tough. It's tough to feel real confident in how either guy will look in a spot like this, just considering where they're at in their careers. Lozon's had a long layoff. Cerrone hasn't had good performances lately. I'm excited that we get to watch this fight. I know some people don't like it when some people look at fights like this as sort of exploitative or something, and I guess I get that in a way, but any fight that kind of hits that nostalgia button for me is something that I get excited about, and I'm excited to see these two guys. And I think there's a decent chance we see one or both of them retire at the end of this fight. So, and I think it's a perfect matchup, especially if this is their last fight. It's a perfect matchup for both of them to go out on. So I think it's a cool fight. Anyway, and then finally our headliner, Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett. Calvin Kattar is 23-5 overall, 7-3 in the UFC. Josh Emmett is 17-2 overall and 8-2 in the UFC. Josh Emmett scored 11 knockdowns in his first 10 UFC fights, which is, I'm pretty sure, a UFC record. Josh Emmett lands 4.2 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 4.1, while Calvin lands 5.1 significant strikes per minute and absorbs 7.6. So Calvin's getting hit quite a bit. Calvin does have 89% takedown defense. One thing I wanted to add here, Dan Ige attempted 9 takedowns on Calvin Kattar and got none of them. So, because some people have been talking about Josh Emmett's wrestling in this fight. First of all, Josh Emmett doesn't use his wrestling ever, really. I mean, when's the last time we really saw Emmett go to his wrestling? And even if he does, Calvin's got that 89% takedown defense. Calvin Kattar obviously has solid takedown defense. My overall read on this fight, Calvin should be the better boxer. He should have the better output. He should have the better cardio. He should be more consistent over 25 minutes. That said, Josh Emmett obviously is a guy who brings a lot of danger. He's got a lot of power. He's got, like I said, he had 11 knockdowns in his first 10 UFC fights. And this is another one of those things where I don't remember the stat. I don't remember where I heard this. But I believe Josh Emmett has the best ratio of knockdowns to strikes landed, definitely in the division. And one of the best in UFC history. Like I said, I don't remember, but he's a guy that if he does connect with you, there's a great chance that he's going to knock you at least down, if not out. Being in there for 25 minutes with someone who has the power of Emmett has got to be kind of a scary proposition. But Calvin Kattar has never been finished by strikes. And I'm a big believer in the idea that just because it has never happened doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean Josh Emmett is incapable of finishing Calvin Kattar with strikes, but the trend is your friend kind of thing. The trend so far, Calvin Kattar in 28 professional fights has never been finished by strikes. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind. I'm having trouble getting a super, super confident read on this fight. But, like I said, given that it's 5 rounds, Calvin Kattar has never been finished by strikes. I do lean Kattar, as we know he's fought 5 rounds before. He has great cardio and he tends to come alive as the fight progresses, kind of thing, sort of like I said with Cerrone. So I do think that Josh Emmett is reliant on the finish here. If you like Josh Emmett, I think you bet him inside the distance because I don't think he's going to win a decision here. I think Kattar is going to be the better boxer who's more consistently putting out strikes, more consistently landing strikes, whereas Emmett's going to be doing his thing where he just kind of keeps that hand cocked back and he's waiting for his moment to land the big one and try to find the finish, and I don't think he will find the finish. The odds on this fight, I forgot to give you the odds on Cerrone Lozon too, didn't I? Cerrone is -155, Lozon is +145, and then in Kattar Emmett, Kattar is -225 with Emmett at +196. But like I said, if you like Emmett, I think bet him inside the distance because I just can't really see him winning a decision here. The only way I could see Emmett winning a decision, if it would have to be kind of like the Rob Font Chito Vera fight, where I do think Kattar is going to land more strikes here, but maybe Emmett just lands way fewer strikes but lands big ones that actually, if he does get some knockdowns and that kind of thing, maybe. But I just also don't know if his cardio will hold up over 25 minutes as well as Kattar's will. So I don't mind using Calvin Kattar as a parlay piece here potentially. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and take a look at the bets that I have so far for this fight, or for this card. Like I said, I do still need to do a little bit more tape. I think I have 2 fights left, and so, it's possible that I'll have more bets coming. But so far, I only have 1 straight bet, and that is Damir Ismagulov. I put 1.6 units at -160. Let's see, what have I got for props here? I put 1.4 units on Jeremiah Wells versus Court McGee to go over 2.5 rounds at minus 140. I put 0.2 unit sprinkle, like I said, on Joe Lozon by TKO in round 1. I put a half unit, and it's a little more than a sprinkle, a half unit handful on Natalia Silva by submission at plus 700. And then other than that, all I've got so far are some parlays. I've got Phil Haas, Adrian Yanez, and Cody Stamen, 1 unit at plus 123. I've got Kevin Holland and Robocop Rodriguez, 1 unit at plus 131. I've got Kyle Daukaus and Gloria DePaula, 1 unit at minus 105. And then I've got a big old parlay of Gregory Rodriguez, Cody Stamen, Gloria DePaula, Phil Haas, Kyle Daukaus, Demir Ismagulov, Kevin Holland, and Calvin Kattar, 0.2 units at plus 1,516. All right, I know this was a much shorter video than usual, but thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you haven't yet, make sure to just subscribe right here on the Never Hedge Media YouTube channel. Make sure to like this video, comment on this video, share it. Help us get the word out there about Never Hedge Media and the things that we're doing. We're going to try to keep bringing you the best content that we can. We've got 4 different content creators working now, so you kind of get a variety of different content and a variety of different styles. If you like what I do, if you like my content and the style that I do it in, you can check me out at Erik Betts Fights. It's yeah, right there. Look up Erik Betts Fights on YouTube. I believe it's should be down in the description of this video as well. You can also find me at Erik Betts Fights on Twitter, on Instagram, that sort of thing. I would love for you to follow me all of those places and just kind of follow my journey as I bet fights and try to get better and better at doing this thing that we do. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, I am Erik with Erik Betts Fights, and I appreciate all of you. I hope you enjoy the fights at UFC Austin this Saturday night. Take care, everybody.